topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And welcome to Triversity Talk. It's Pride Month. Yay! Happy Pride. We're all getting geared up. There's been one event after the next, as we all know, and I just love this month. June, Pride Month, is my favorite month. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Well, like I said, it's just been nonstop. This Saturday, Triversity was present as the Sussex County Pride, and I really love doing out-of-city prides because it gives me a chance to meet other people in other places, and certainly our organization, Triversity, we service the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, so we were in Sussex County, New Jersey. And it was just great. So many folks that didn't know us came up to say hi, and they found out about Triversity and what we can offer them. And then meeting old faces that I haven't seen from before the pandemic. Well, not old faces, you know what I'm saying. Faces that I just haven't seen in a while. So a good time was had by all. And last night was a really special night for me. I got to go to the GOAL Awards. That's the Gay Officer Action League Awards. They are NYPD here in New York. They are the Rainbow Group, and they made a lot of very heartfelt, poignant speeches about how they feel they're being treated as police officers, and they're gay, and how they protect everybody no matter what. You know, that's always open to people's opinions and discussions, but I have to tell you, I was very happy to be there, thankful for everything that they do, and a shout out because the Imperial Court of New York was there because they were getting an award for everything that they do. You know, Pride Month, really think about it. It's about giving back. If you are in the Pennsylvania area or upstate New York or New Jersey, we are going to be having a wonderful Pride get together on the 25th with our own bell pepper. I'm sorry, the 24th. So more about that on our website. You can find us also on Facebook. And let me think. Let me not forget the Fresh Fruit Festival. You know, a shout out to really calling attention to all the LGBTQ plus films that are made, short films, wonderful films, fun films, and again, about bringing the community together. And we had an awards festival for the Fresh Fruit Festival, which was helmed by Jed Ryan and Lady Clover Honey. And it was hosted at Rock Bar, which we all love, right on Christopher Street. So yeah, it's been like such an amazing Pride. And because it's Pride, I really wanted to have my shows be really extra special this month. So a couple of months ago, I think it's been a few months already, I ran into someone that just totally impressed me. Chauncey Dandridge, who produces a lot of the shows at Stonewall and now a lot of other places, he gave a night called Freak Out. And this is a show he does every month. And I met, she was just so entertaining. Let me just say that. Her style, the way she did drag, and the girl can sing. And then I found out all these other things about her that were so very, very cool. So let's give a warm welcome to Angela Mansberry.
Hello, Wendy. Thank you for having me.
Oh my, it's so great to have you here. And I'm happy that even though we didn't talk to each other before the show, we are color coordinated.
Of course. What else? What else?
I knew, and I knew from the moment I met you, I'm like, she puts herself together so well. If I invite her on the show, I know she's going to show up with a rockin' background.
I'm a Virgo. I overplan everything.
You are overplanning Virgo. Well, that's interesting, Angela. I did not know that about Virgos. I'm a Capricorn, and we are like, forget it. We're all about like planning, organization. I'm not loosey goosey in that way. Although when it comes to corporate rules, I am loosey goosey. Do not give me a spreadsheet or anything like that. I cannot even connect that. And you know what, Angela? I can tell you this. I don't know how to cut and paste. There.
Ooh, okay.
Kind of girl I can talk to and tell those things to.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. I already
so
feel
don't ask me to cut and paste. So welcome. Where are you from originally?
So I grew up in Howell, New Jersey. It was a pretty small suburb in like Central Shore-ish New Jersey.
The central, but wait, if it's central, how is it near the shore?
Well, it's like, I don't know. I always like to think of it of like New Jersey's waist. Like, you know, when it pinches in that little waist.
And then it's really
like, and then it just goes up like 15 minutes from the beach is essentially where we grew up.
Oh, so you okay. Is it anywhere near Asbury Park?
Actually, my parents live now right next to Asbury Park. They lived there for a few years, and now they live in Interlaken, which is like a really small town just next to Asbury Park.
Oh my God, I haven't even met your parents, and I love them already. Of course, you have parents that live near Asbury Park.
They're the best.
I'm sure they're amazing. So, you grew up in Jersey. What was it like for you growing up in Howell, New Jersey?
Honestly, I remember writing a speech in high school. I was always a very good student. I'll start there. I was always a very good student. I was always putting my schoolwork first, but then I was also really involved with the performing arts. I went to a high school in New Jersey that was basically a magnet school where everyone from the various towns would go to this school specifically. We didn't have gym class. We didn't have electives.
Okay, wait, I got to stop you right there. That is so, you know how many people would kill to have gone to a school like that? No gym class, just performance.
Trust me, we had dance instead. That was our gym class.
Well, yeah.
Perfect. And it was, and honestly, that I think was the biggest thing for me was that like I had the performing arts to kind of shield me from bullying a lot. It was something because I wasn't good at sports. I mean, the only sports I played as a kid were swimming, even though I tried other things. I wasn't really that good at sports aside from
it's
swimming.
The competitive, like it's interesting because I do meet people in the drag world. There's someone who's been on my show, Kay Gorgeous, who is actually, you can tell even when she performs and she's funny as anything, but that whole football, she was like really amazing at football. So it's interesting to meet different people's background, but swimming is a sport, Angela.
I know. And thankfully my mom taught me at a very young age. Swimming was a big part of my life. But then when I started doing more shows, especially during the summer, then I couldn't swim as much.
Right.
So that was kind of where theater kind of took the mantle from there. I remember I wrote this speech in high school. It was like trying to find, do you ever watch that show Wacky Racers, the like cartoon?
Yes.
So remember how like each of the cars had like their own symbol and their own vibe and they were like their own like unique thing.
They were their own thing.
Yeah, they like each of them had like their own symbol and their own genre. And I remember thinking like, well, what would my car be like? I remember being very young thinking about like, what would my Wacky Racers car be like? And I wrote a paper about this in high school about that. I realized that the theater masks were my symbol. They kind of became this identity.
Right, the drama and the comedy masks.
Yes.
Interesting.
I was such a theater nerd in high school that we actually had varsity jackets for theater.
I love that. You know what? I love that because listen to what you're saying, right? We talk to so many people that have been bullied in school and certainly forced to fit in high school. And many high schools, it's all about sports. Now, Triversity, we're in Milford, Pennsylvania. We have an unbelievable high school with an unbelievable drama department. I have to tell you that. But they also they put a huge emphasis on sports and being good at those sports. And if you're not that kid, you really feel the pressure of that.
Oh, for sure. And it was really, I think that was my biggest outlet, having something to be able to express myself creatively. Yeah. It was huge. I mean, and honestly, growing up doing theater, people assumed that I was gay from the moment I stepped on a stage. And I honestly, it irritated me a lot because one, I didn't really know what that meant. But it was one of those labels that like, as soon as you're a slightly femme kid doing theater, they're going to call you names.
Right.
The thing I had was I was talented. So, and
No,
I had
I'm not gay, I'm talented.
So that was my armor. That was my armor, was like, yeah, you can make fun of me, but I can belt the house down. And
that's exactly right.
So having something to be good at, having a group of friends who were all, I remember when I came out to my friends in high school, they were like, yeah, no kidding. I was like,
right. I'm sure a lot of them, here's the thing about theater departments in high school. A lot of kids that are in theater department, and this is not a stereotype, a lot of them are gay, or they come out later, or they come out in high school. But what you're talking about is the support, camaraderie, the community of a theater department in high school, which is why it's so tragic to me when I hear, especially in the city, that they're cutting arts programs. I mean, my God, you know, they'd never cut football, right? They'd never cut lacrosse. They'd never cut that stuff, but they would cut a theater program or painting or something like that. It's tragic.
It is so tragic, because I honestly don't know what I would have done without those programs.
Right.
I really don't know how I would have gotten through it. I really because it consumed so much of my time. It made me so professional. These teachers were seriously some of the most amazing teachers I've ever had in my life.
In high school, that's like so totally amazing to me that you're saying that you were able to get that kind of support and training at a young age without having to come, you know, you weren't all that far from the city. Lots of kids have to like schlep into the city and go to schools here to get that kind of training. So very cool. What's the name of the high school? I want to give it a shout out.
Oh, Howell High School FPAC. Stephen Kazikoff, Lisa Twomley, and Regina McGallen, and some of they were some of my favorite. Amy Accione, some of my favorite teachers, and some of them are still there, and they still work with kids. But the difference for me growing up was that starting in like second grade, I got an agent and a manager, and I started going into the city on a pretty semi-frequent basis with my parents to go on auditions. And
so
when
I auditioning from I love learning this about you. It's funny, some people I'll pre-interview. I didn't even want to pre-interview you because I knew it would be this beautiful box that we would just start to unwrap. So when was your first audition? How old were you?
I was in second grade. I had just done like the school play in the second grade, and my teacher told my mother, like, I think you should pursue this. I mean, he's very talented. You could pursue this. And it was one of those things, we didn't know anything about the industry. We didn't know anything about it. So it was more just like, we all kind of figured it out together. My mom would pick me up at school. We'd go into city auditions.
Yeah.
I auditioned for like movies that people still know, but of course I didn't get. Like, I remember I auditioned for the little gay kid in School of Rock.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes. Yes, because here's the spoiler alert. I'm only 32. The character's a woman of a certain age, but I mean, some communities 32 is old, but you never know.
There you go.
There you go. It works.
Of course, we all know that film too.
Oh yeah, and that was a big one. I didn't get it, but it was one of those things where we didn't even know what the hell we were doing. We were just figuring it out. But the exciting thing was when I was 11. In 2001, I got cast in A Christmas Carol at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, that's huge. Of course, I know that. Wow.
So Tim Curry was Scrooge that year, which was...
Stop it. You were on... Oh, my God. Okay, so now I'm totally impressed, and I'm falling all over myself. I can't believe you've been on stage with Tim Curry. Wow.
I mean, but here's the real point. I was a swing, so I didn't actually play the part. I covered two different actors on one track. And the tough thing was for an 11-year-old was, okay, you have to be here every day. This was just after 9/11, by the way. So this was like the December after 9/11, which was wild for a whole other reason. But it was that I was there all the time covering for these kids. And I never went on aside from one bow that they felt bad. So they brought the kids out and had them do one bow.
But here's the thing with swing. I love having, first of all, this theater chat with you. I've never done understudy. for me to learn lines, and even as a kid, I just has never, and I've had technique and I've had all the little tricks that they teach you. And now you can only imagine it flies out of my, no, you know what? I work extra hard and I can learn them. But as a swing, you had to learn 2 parts. How did you do that at 11?
Well, it was one track, but there were 2 different kids casts because it was kids.
Okay.
So there was a green cast and a red cast, Christmas Carol.
Okay.
So I was there all the time to cover both kids.
Right.
So I watched the show probably hundreds of times. And I remember being, and it was hard. It was hard at a young age to prepare for these auditions, drive into the city, go into these auditions. And I remember one very vivid memory where we drove all the way there and I got turned away at the door because my hair wasn't blonde enough. And I was like, I don't know, maybe 11. And I remember thinking, this is so stupid. Why? If you really like me, you can dye my hair. What difference does it make? We're selling, I don't know, orange juice. Why?
But if you had been doing drag, then you would have had the blonde wig with you, Angela.
Oh, I know. Well, this is the fascinating thing about drag is you're an actor, a performer, but you get to transform and create your own character.
That's exactly right.
So I feel like a lot of that
brought up a very good point about because I can't. There's maybe only 2 things in my entire career. I got there and they're like, "Who sent? Oh, this is the worst. Who sent you? You're not right for this." Like I sent myself. You know?
Yeah, right.
Who sent you? Why would? Well, you know what? I didn't send myself, but like you, right? You get there and you think to yourself, well, why don't you just see what I can do? You're right. You're not blonde enough. They can make you blonder. Hasn't anyone heard of like hair dye? I mean,
it wigs. I don't know. It was one of those things that I remember at a very young age thinking, okay, I don't think I want to do this as a career because I don't like that there are so many factors that you can't control. Your height, your weight, your hair color, your eye color.
Right.
And so I didn't like
someone's opinion, Angela, someone's opinion of you when you're go up to that desk where the 4 of them are. Well, now we're doing everything on Zoom, but 4 people at the casting that are sitting there and you have to go in there and give your 150%. And with me, it's always like, oh man, there's one that can see I have the unicorn horn coming out of the middle of my head. And then you have to go into like your audition piece. It's very hard. You're being judged.
It's very hard. And it was one of those things. I mean, I didn't go to college. Basically, I did high school theater. That was a really big part of it. Then I went to Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Right. A great communications department, by the way.
But here's the funny part. I originally went to that school to be a veterinarian.
Okay, girl. I knew there had to be a connection here. I was pre-veterinary when I started college.
No way.
There were 2 careers I wanted from the time I was little. I wanted to be a model or I wanted to be a veterinarian. Now, how funny is that? And I got into SUNY Binghamton, very tough school. And I got in there and the program, it was really tough for me.
Yeah.
So like you, my passion was to be, so you're an animal lover, Angela?
Oh yeah. We always had animals growing up. And I mean,
that, wow.
Yeah. And I got through like the first semester.
You did.
I remember calling my parents and saying, I don't think I can do this. My brain doesn't work in black and white to do science all the time.
Only your backgrounds do. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Bring in the color. Like I remember going to do a project and I wanted to do something really creative and the teacher blew up at me. And I remember thinking, okay, well, maybe this just isn't meant for me because if I can't be creative with what I do, then I can't really feel whole. Like there's always been a part of that I always needed that creative component. And so it was, then I thought, okay, let's do something really vague. I did communications and business. But the great thing about Muhlenberg was you could still do the theater and shows without being a theater major.
Absolutely. I knew that about Muhlenberg. And the size of the college is great. It's a very you know what? You made the right choice. Because if you had picked a huge university with a weak theater department, a strong science department, and then you decided, nope, science isn't for me, it wouldn't have turned out as well for you, you know?
I agree. It all happened for a reason. And I remember graduating college thinking, this is probably going to be the last time I ever perform. I mean, I was in an a cappella group where I taught myself how to write a cappella music by the time.
Now that you can do that. Wow.
So because I did a cappella in high school. And so when I got to college, I was in an all show tunes a cappella group. Shout out to No.
I'm sorry. That's like every queen's dream.
Oh my God.
All the time.
And I just taught myself how to write a cappella music, like fully out in the sheet music, breaking down the chords and writing a cappella music, which it's just so funny when you start doing drag at the point in my life when I started to do it, where it's like all of these weird talents that I had growing up that I never thought would amount to anything are very useful.
Right. Right. That is interesting. Now, I know you can sing. When did you first discover you had a great voice? Were you like the little kid that...
Oh, I was a little kid and I had my Aunt Sally, who was like she was like the matriarch of my mother's extended Irish family. And I remember going to like every family gathering and Aunt Sally would corner me and say, you're going to sing a song for us now.
Oh, how cute.
She was a doll. And I remember singing very young. That was my first exposure to performing, was through singing.
Through singing.
Then I did I studied piano for a few years. I did dance for a few years, did like a lot of children's theater programs. But thank God for my parents, because you know what? I tell them all the time, like, my sister is a physical education teacher, very athletic. My brother works in finance, very smart, very good with spreadsheets, very analytical. And then I'm the creative one. I'm like, how did you have 3 kids that all do completely different things? And they just say, we noticed when you liked something, and then we just wanted to encourage that. So that was,
you know what, you bring out a good point, because especially in the drag world, the stories are not always so pretty. And in the LGBTQ world, the stories are not always so pretty. And to have the thing about you, when I met you, I'm like, she's so well adjusted. That's what came through. There's something about your personality that you could sit down and talk to you and tell you stuff. And you know what? That is your upbringing, okay? Because your parents made everything okay for their kids and supported it. And you know, if there's parents listening out there, and I know some amazing parents, especially involved with Triversity, that are doing such great things for their kids. That's what it's all about.
It's so important with queer kids.
Yeah, it really is.
It's even different now than it was when I was growing up, but it is so beautiful to see. Because I see kids all the time now, and it's just, the parents are so excited for their kids to meet a drag queen. They're so excited.
You know, Angela, I was talking in my opening about, we did Sussex County Pride. Now, you know, I'm in a lot of major drag events in New York City, but Sussex County is rural New Jersey. It's beautiful. We had a bunch of people there shooting incredible pictures. Someone named Felix Collectible and another friend, Nicole, and they put these albums out with over 300 pictures, and both of them did that. Like, between the two of them, like 675 pictures. The thing that really stuck with me, the drag shows that we had at Sussex County Pride, I think there were like 6 drag queens or 7. The little kids, the grinning ear to ear, the smile on their faces, the wanting to touch, they just like were, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. And that's all I can say.
Well, and it just goes to show that, like, any kind of hatred from young people has to come from the parents, because or their whatever their upbringing or their society, whatever that is.
Their society sometimes.
Because I've seen young kids who somehow get it. Like, they don't need an explanation.
Absolutely.
That it's a man in a dress, or that none of this is real.
They're pure. A lot of these kids, you know, think about this. There's a kid watching that kid may be gay, that kid may be straight, but all that kid knows, if that's a creative kid, is this person in front of them is beautiful and makes them feel good and makes them laugh. What could be better?
That's it. And the kids get it, because it's like dress up.
Yes.
It's that kind of play that we lose a lot as we get older, and that has been the biggest joy for me when performing and being a drag queen is you just get to play. And
Right.
people love, like, and it's so corny because I tell like new performers this all the time. I swear, I'm like, if you're having fun, they're having fun. And I know
Right.
that sounds stupid and simplistic, but that is exactly what it is. And so I try to go into every show and just say, you know what? Let's have fun. Let's do something different. Let's do something big crazy, which as a Virgo, letting go can be difficult, but I love it.
Right. But when you're transformed, okay, because the essence of who you are is still underneath all of that.
Sure.
But when we transform in the way that we look or the way our makeup is and how we dress, it becomes a whole other thing. And that connection, as you said, with the audience, you take them on a ride with you.
Yes.
And how cool is that? And I have to tell you, I've done stand-up comedy, and then I've been, I do these parodies and drag shows or whatever. It's so much easier than than standing in front of a straight audience doing stand-up with drunken people at 2:00 in the morning and having them like yell stuff at. That was the hardest thing for me in the world, and I just stopped doing it. However, if I MC at a drag show, it is easy as pie for me. It doesn't matter what the hell I say, because it's like you love it, right? The audience is feeding you and you're feeding them. You can get up there and say whatever you want, and everyone is there to have a good time. And what could
I've always thought about that. I think stand-up is one of the hardest art
it's
forms.
really hard.
That is hard because you have to go from, because at least with drag show you have music, and I feel like music can convey so much aside from just what the music is. It conveys a tone, it conveys a there's so much that comes along just with music in general that gets people off from the starting spot. And that's
right. That's a good point. Right.
That's the toughest thing with stand-up is you're at the starting point, literally, and all you have is your voice. So
you're smart. I never looked at it that way. I always said, I feel like I'm up there and I'm completely naked. And you're right. You're already at the starting point. The gun has gone off and then they're looking at you. Okay. Make me laugh, girl.
Yeah. Dance, do something.
Right. The pressure is on. They've had a few drinks and the pressure is on you. It's a totally different experience. Even if the audience is straight in a drag show, they have such a great time. There's no difference between a gay audience, a straight audience, or whatever. They come expecting whatever that person on stage is going to do, and that's fun. And they want to be there for the fun.
Well, and I think it's part of the way that I just, because the way I approach it, because I've seen all different types of drag performers.
Yeah.
I've seen the more brassy, the more like the ones who love to read the audience, and that's part of the gag. And I realized pretty quickly early on that that's not me. Like I enjoy being kind. I think that no matter, because as you said, anyone in a drag show, anyone attending it, gay, straight, trans, we all come from different experiences.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, we're all in this space here together. So that means everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves kindness.
Thank you.
And I think that's really important. Like, I don't want to just be mean to be mean. And then you can tweet about it like, she said this thing. Like, I'd much rather go through the world with love and kindness, which, sometimes easier said than done. Because as you said, drunk people and loud people. And
right. But it absolutely shows in your work. It's interesting what you said about drag queens that read the audience, because I'm out of like a completely different decades than you are. And the drag I came up with, it was about that a lot of the time. But it wasn't, you know what? It was about reading the audience, but it was about being sarcastic and not hurting. All right. It wasn't about hurting. But we've all been to drag shows where I won't name a person that was on RuPaul's Drag Race and lost. A lot of people know who this person is. I don't want to say it on air, but she was so mean. And she was my waitress at Lips. Okay. This girl was in New York for like 2 weeks. And I was there with a bunch of my friends, gay, straight. We were at Lips. We love Lips. It's a great venue. Yes. She was the waitress and you could tell she was just mean. And when she really started to develop her drag, it was mean. It was very, and that was her thing. And that will never fly for me.
Yeah, it's not big, and I can appreciate if it's well done, if it's a well constructed read. Trust me, I love to read my friends. I love to read people that I know who I know can take the joke. But
a joke is one thing, right?
Right. And if it's someone you know, then it's fine. But like insulting someone's appearance who you don't know,
exactly.
You don't know that person's experience and you don't know how that's going to make them feel. And
exactly.
And it's one of those things that I overthink a lot is like, I want to make everyone feel comfortable, but also as a drag queen, your job is slightly to push people a bit past their comfort zone. So it's always this balance that I'm always trying to strike of like trying to do what I want to do in the right moment, but also trying to give this audience what they need in this moment, which is a bit.
How did you get started doing drag bingo? Why that?
So first time I did drag in college once.
Okay.
I went by the name Anna Banana.
And I'm from the Bronx, I would call it Anna Banana.
Yeah. You know, I was like, no, it's Anna Banana. And I remember I had gotten like some hand-me-down stuff from people. I remember I got shoes from a thrift store. The shoes flew off in the first 30 seconds of the number.
I love it.
Then then of course I didn't know what else to do. So then I spent the next 30 seconds putting the shoe back on my foot, which of course now is like throw the shoes away and just keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
But then I didn't do it again until I was 27.
Wow.
Yeah. So then so my local bar Albatross is basically my second home. I know
you're there all the time.
Oh my God. It's like my second home. And here's why is because I remember going there one of the first times, because I've lived in Astoria now over 10 years. And
wow.
For the first time I went there, I remember Suddenly Seymour was performing.
Yeah.
And I had never
She's fabulous, by the way.
She's my drag mom.
Yeah. Fabulous.
So I remember watching her and watching how people reacted to show tunes in a drag scenario. Because I had only seen, like Lady Gaga, like more pop.
Right.
Like death dropping type queens. I had never seen someone so committed to musical theater, and musical theater is my first love. I mean, there is nothing there in terms of music that connects with me emotionally. There's nothing like a show tune.
Right.
So I remember watching her do this whole sing along. Everyone's singing the Moulin Rouge thing, and everyone knows the words, and everyone's singing in harmonies. It was like a night at Marie's Crisis, and I remember thinking, I want to do that.
That's what I wanted to know. Wow.
And
have you ever seen Sherry Vine?
Yes. Well, I'd seen her digital stuff at the time.
Right. So she's a good friend. And Sherry does a lot of these parodies, which are hilarious. But Sherry is the same background as you, musical theater. And Sherry was like probably for me, the first drag performer when she first came to New York, I think it was like the 90s, that was like a show tunes queen. The drag performers I knew were lip synca. They were Major Sweetie. All these people all lip sync. Sherry was the first one that like, oh, she really sings. And that was a new experience for me, that you could be like not only a singing drag queen, that you were like a really excellent singing drag queen. And I have to say, Angela, you fit in right now because we have so many mutuals that are musical theater people. Yes. I'm sure you've seen The Assassins.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God.
So not only musical theater, they've got the choreography down and everything. And, they really have personified what the girl groups do on stage. But all of these kids come out of musical theater. And to me, what a great use of it, to use it entertainment in that form.
I love New York City for that reason. There's so many different flavors of it, and people at the top of their game doing such unique art. And that was kind of what I wanted to do because when I first, so they used to do this show at Albatross, which actually I am going to be hosting in a few weeks, but they do the debutante show, which it was for first timers who had wanted to try drag. And I thought about it and I said, that's something I've always wanted to try. I had never done my own makeup. I had never done a lot of things. So I basically had a month to plan for that show. And I remember being so stressed out. And I did this insane number. I did a mashup of What's Inside from Waitress and The Worst Pies in London from Sweeney Todd, because it was about pies.
Right. So you did a whole compilation.
Yes. And it was bizarre. It was bonkers. Right. But it was the first time I ever performed it as Angela Mansberry. And I remember going up to Sutton before the show. And I was like, I'm preparing for this. I'm really nervous. She's like, you're going to get addicted to it. And I was like, I don't know. And look what happened. Now here we are 5 years later, and I now host the Debutante Show. We're doing it
I love this.
The 29th, and we have 14 amazing people, some of which are new to the neighborhood, new to performing drag for the first time. It's so exciting working with new performers because I've been in their shoes. And I know how exciting and scary it is.
Right. But you're a good drag mother. You have the right personality to make it warm and fuzzy. I want to show your clip. I'm excited to show that.
Sure.
Yeah. Tell me what the clip is.
So this was at Icon in Astoria.
Okay. I know Icon.
So they did a competition called Pantheon, which was a weekly competition that they would do. And I was one of the judges. And so they asked me to do a number, and this is a number that's inspired by my own issues of my body and my own self-consciousness, and how this finding my own strength and beauty despite everyone else, whatever they say.
I love it.
This number's about.
Okay, let it roll.
Somebody would tell me when I was younger, all bodies aren't the same. Photoshop, bitty models on magazine covers told me I was overweight. I stopped eating what a bomber, getting out carbs and a hot girl summer. If I could go back and tell myself when I was younger, I'd say, bitch, you better be joking.
Funny. You're funny.
Well, I love writing mixes. I mean, it really, and that goes back to like me working with a cappella music, is just putting all these different things together.
What is your process for that?
So it starts with me just coming up with an idea. I put it in a notepad and on my phone, and I'll be like, oh, that's an interesting combination. Write that down. If it's a good one, I'll email myself to remind me, or I'll just put it in just in my phone. And then then I'll just kind of sit down and start to think about what is the story of this number. Because it always has, even with a mix, I like to have a beginning, middle, and end, so that there's some sort of story or story.
You're creating the story then from these pieces of music that exist.
Yeah. Or references, lots of different. So that's kind of and then it changes as you're writing it too. It's a lot of, you try it and then it's like, oh, I don't like that, or I don't like that. And so it takes a long time to write.
Yeah, how long? I always wanted to ask people that do this, how long does it take for a piece?
I mean, it all kind of depends on how long the initial process is. It also depends on how many things are going on. If it's like one song with references on top of it, those are usually easier. If you're weaving together multiple songs with references, which that number was, it becomes a lot more fine tuning in terms of editing, like going into the transitions between the references, making sure
And you do all of that. You do all of that. Amazing.
I do. And it's really something I'm very proud of, because that for me helped me find so much of the voice of Angela Mansberry is this kind of combination of older references, newer songs, things that made me laugh that maybe wouldn't necessarily go together in your brain, but it all works on the same plane. And that's part of I love it. It's one of my favorite things that I would like to do.
Why Angela Lansbury? Why her? Why that persona?
So, okay, so here's a bomb for you. When I first chose the name Angela Mansberry, it started as a joke in college. We just thought it was kind of funny. We were just like this wholesome woman calling her Angela Mansberry. We just thought that was kind of funny. So I had that in my back of my brain. And because when I was really young, I would go through these phases with certain musicals where I would be completely obsessed. I'd listen to it nonstop. And one of my biggest inspirations, still one of my favorite shows, is Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, that's a great show.
So I had the double disc CD. I would play it on my studio system. And it's double disc.
Double disc. She's not messing around.
Oh, not at all. And I made the entire set of Sweeney Todd out of Legos when I was like 12 years old.
Get out.
I would reenact the entire show, right down to the chair with the slide. I had all these set pieces. So I would reenact the whole show. And I remember being very young and thinking, wow, Mrs. Lovett is still probably my favorite musical theater character of all time. Just because she's funny, she's kind, but she's demented. And so
would you say that describes yourself?
Oh yeah, like that's kind of where it all started. But I remember
with it immediately.
And then I remember being so young and thinking, but now I'm never going to be able to play that part. Right. And so I remember being very young and thinking, wow, this is such a great part that I'll never be able to play. But then when I started performing as Angela Mansberry, my first inspiration was her musical theater work, specifically Sweeney Todd. Worst Pies in London was one of the first songs I ever performed. Then it kind of became everyone mentioning these things that I had never seen that Angela was in. So I had never watched Murder, She Wrote before. True story.
I figured it started with Murder, She Wrote. Wow.
Yes. So I had never watched it. And of course, every person telling me, you need to watch this show. So then I started watching it. And I remember watching the first episode and thinking, this is amazing. Why is this not a piece of like queer pop culture canon? Like, it's so campy.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. It is very high camp.
Very high camp. And Angela is just adorable. You love that character. And I remember after watching a few episodes, a light bulb went off in my brain. And I said, I have to do a show themed around this. I have to do, because this is a show that like a lot of queer people would enjoy, but you haven't watched it. So I had pitched a show to Albatross after I had done my debutante show and doing a few open stage nights. I was like, I want to host a show where we watch Murder, She Wrote, and everyone in the crowd votes for who they think the killer is as we're watching the episode. So then it kind of became, okay, Angela Mansberry is not just a musical theater queen. She also may or may not be a serial killer. Because there's a
musical theater queen.
I mean, why not both?
Well, she's a killer.
Horror movies and musical theater are my two favorite things. So why not combine them? For me, horror and humor are two sides of the same coin.
Right.
So it's such a great, fun way to combine horror with camp.
First of all, I think that's brilliant that you get that. I'm a horror film addict. What do I love about horror films? Well, they're just so over the top, you know.
Oh, and that's my defense mechanism. Whenever I watch something really scary, my response is to laugh.
Right, because it's so ridiculous. You can't wrap your head around it. Or you're making me think maybe we don't want to wrap our head around it. Maybe it's the denial that is such a terrible thing. Oh, if I laugh at it, then it's a funny thing that could never happen.
And I think I was a kid. So I had siblings who were older than me. And so I hope my brother's not offended by me telling this. He loved to scare us. So he would chase us around the house in masks, and I was terrified of everything as a kid. The first time I watched Clue in 3rd grade, I slept on my parents' floor because I was
Are you
scared.
Clue? I mean, those are not even really super scary.
When your older brother chases you around the house with a butcher
mask.
knife, there's something scary about that. So then it became, this is my defense mechanism, is to laugh. And I do think it's partially just a defense mechanism, but for me, I love combining those two things. And Murder, She Wrote was really the turning point when I thought, oh, this character can be older. That was not my initial thought as well. I had never thought of her as that. And then I started playing around with the makeup, and I thought, oh, I really like this. I really like this character who's just like an old soul.
Oh, yeah. And you decided, and this is so funny because that is, like, you're young, but you come off as a very old soul. The night I met you, your age is not, if you look at your face, you can tell you're really young, but that's not what comes through. You definitely like are an extremely old soul, someone that knows, you know, someone you can confide in, someone you can depend on, and someone that will tell you the truth.
I think that that's what a lot of my queer audiences find in me, is they find a comfort, almost like a hug from a grandma.
It is. Angela will take good care of us.
Rest in my bosom. Like and I love that, because like my grandmother's died when I was really young. So the fact that like I'm able to explore this character. And also I love the fact that like we don't know how long we're gonna live. I may never be older. You never know. So it's like, why not live the best years of your life now?
Exactly. And do what you want to do and live it the way you want to live it. So, oh my gosh, I got my 5-minute warning. How about, I could talk to you all night. So I want to hear what you're doing for Pride. Tell me what your upcoming gigs are.
Yes. So Pride is wild, as I'm sure you know. So I'm currently in an off-Broadway show, which is an immersive murder mystery show at Soho Playhouse.
Oh, I know the show. Oh, I didn't realize you were in that.
Yeah, it's called Murder in the First. And I'm one of like 7 or 8 suspects. And it's super fun. I mean, we've done 3 shows. We've got one coming up on this Saturday on the 17th. And then we've got our last show on July 1st. I do have a discount code. If you go to my link tree on my Instagram, I have $20 off for those tickets.
Okay, and the schedule is there too. What nights you're going to be performing? Great.
Yes.
So all of this is on Instagram.
Correct. So we've got 2 more shows of that. I'm also doing a new monthly show at Albatross that celebrates all musical theater. It's called I'll Drink to That.
Cheers.
A boozy celebration of Broadway is what I like to call it. So it's really fun. I'm doing that on June 22nd, the 4th Thursday at Albatross. And then that following Thursday is the debutante ball, which is for first-timer performers, and I'm hosting that as well.
You're so perfect. I find people all the time. I'm sending them to you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
you're going to take them under your bosom.
Yes, we're going to be bosom buddies. I feel
and make them feel safe.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of stuff coming up. Do you at any point think about going back and doing 1 minute legitimate theater, because you have the ability to do that?
Well, I mean, doing this scripted show that's partly improv and partly scripted has really opened my eyes to it. And I mean, if it's the right role, I would do it in a heartbeat. I love doing theater.
I think as a performer, you're very dynamic. You have an incredible range. And you know what, Angela? Why not do it all? Before I say goodnight, I always do a parting shot. So look into my camera, say cheese. Love it. Are you marching in Pride?
I am not. So I host a bingo she wrote at Albatross every Sunday.
So you won't be able to do Pride.
So it's always one of those things like I need to be there for my community, and that day they'll be around on Pride, but then it's always like they can always come home to me after their Pride festivities.
You'll be waiting with your bosoms, your open arms. Angela will make it okay.
Makeup just streaming down my sweaty face. I can't wait.
You are hilarious. Thank you so much. And I need to get to Albatross or Icon. My friend Nick Lyon used to be one of the owners of Icon. And I would love to see you perform there. And again, I hope you're back at Stonewall for Chauncey's Freak Out.
Oh, I'd love to. That was so much fun. I'm also a queen on Tuesdays. And I'm
Oh,
also a queen in Astoria on Tuesdays for bingo. And Thursdays, I'm at Alewife Brewing for bingo. So lots of
Is
bingo.
that also in Astoria?
Alewife Brewing's in Sunnyside.
And Sunnyside, you are a Queens girl through and through. I just love it. And did you do Queen's Pride?
Yes. Well, so I did a bingo on that day. So we had a whole rush of people.
A whole slow. I love it.
It was so much fun.
This queen is Queens through and through.
Yes.
Angela Mansberry, love you to death. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful Pride. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. Take care, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride.